The saloon smelled of stale whiskey and smoke, its cracked windows rattling as the desert wind howled outside. Men with rough hands and harder faces filled the room, gambling, shouting, and drinking as though there were no tomorrow. But when the doors creaked open and Jack Morgan stepped inside, the noise seemed to fade just a little. He wasn't a man to waste words, and the cut of his jaw and the shadow of his hat told everyone enough this was a man on a mission. His boots struck the floorboards with slow, deliberate weight until he stopped at a corner table where she sat, alone, her dress torn at the edges, her hair falling loose over her shoulders. Her eyes flickered up to meet his, sharp, tired, but still holding the remnants of fire that refused to die. Before he could speak, her voice broke the heavy silence. "You paid for me. Now finish it." Her tone wasn't playful, wasn't mocking, it was bitter, as if daring him to confirm the truth she believed about men. The words cut through him sharper than any knife, but Jack didn't flinch. He sat down across from her, his broad shoulders sagging under the weight of everything he carried but never said. She leaned forward, her hands trembling slightly, and whispered again, "You bought me, Cowboy. So finish what you came for." Her laugh was soft, broken, brittle as glass, and it echoed like a dare. Jack shook his head slowly, his voice steady, though his heart felt like it might break. "I didn't pay for you," he said firmly, meeting her eyes. "I paid to free you." For a moment she froze, as if the words made no sense. Then she laughed again, harsher this time, her eyes glistening, with tears she wouldn't allow to fall. "Men don't do that," she said. "Men pay because they want to own. They pay because they think they can take and leave." Without remembering the face of the woman they used, she spat the words like venom. Her pain lay bare. Jack reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper. He slid it across the table to her, the bill of sale, the proof that he had indeed traded every dollar he had earned for her life. She stared at it, her hand hovering above the paper but never touching, as if afraid it would burn her. Her lip quivered, but she bit down hard, forcing strength into herself. "You're lying," she whispered. "Nobody buys freedom in a place like this." Jack leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Then maybe nobody's ever tried." Her chest rose and fell quickly, her breath ragged as she wrestled with the truth. Finally, she reached up with trembling fingers and pulled at the frayed cloth of her dress. Lowering it from her shoulder, Jack's eyes locked on the sight before him, and for the first time in years, he felt his body go numb. Branded deep into her skin was a mark, a cruel iron scar, seared there by men who wanted to remind her every day that she was property, not person. Around it, the skin was littered with old bruises, scars of beatings, cuts that never healed. Clean. Jack felt his stomach twist, his jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might break. But his eyes never left hers. "This is what you paid for," she said coldly, her voice cracking with pain. "This is what you bought. Do you still think you freed me, rancher? Or have I just traded one owner for another?" Jack reached out, his hand hovering inches from her skin, but he didn't touch. His voice shook, but remained steady enough to cut through the fog of her despair. "You're not used goods," he said firmly. "You're not a brand. You're not theirs, you're you. And you're free now, whether you believe it yet or not." Her lips parted as if to argue, but no words came. Instead, for the first time in years, silence fell over her, not the silence of submission, but the silence of shock, of hearing something she never thought could exist. And in that fragile quiet, Jack swore he saw the faintest flicker of hope pass across her eyes, buried deep beneath the weight of her scars. The night grew darker as Jack led her out of the saloon, the desert air biting cold, the moon hanging heavy above. The other men in town watched, their faces twisted in suspicion, jealousy, or cruel amusement. They whispered among themselves, but no one dared step in his way. She walked stiffly beside him, her shoulders hunched as though bracing for a blow that never came. When they reached his horse, she stopped, her hands gripping the edge of her dress, her eyes darting like a trapped bird. "You don't understand," she said breathlessly. "They'll come for you. They'll come for me. No one leaves their grip. No one ever walks away free." Jack turned to her, his face calm but his voice burning with conviction. "Then, let them come. I've faced worse than men who hide behind chains." For a long moment she just stared at him, torn between disbelief and a desperate hunger to believe him. Finally, she let him help her mount the horse, though her hands trembled so badly she nearly slipped. The ride through the open desert was silent, the rhythm of the horse's hooves carrying them further from the town, and closer to something neither could name. She leaned into him, not out of trust but out of exhaustion, her body heavy with years of fear. Jack said nothing. He knew her soul needed space before words could mean anything. By the time they reached his ranch, dawn had begun to streak the horizon with gold and fire. He lifted her down gently, leading her into the warmth of his small cabin. She sat by the fire, staring into the flames as if they might consume her. Jack set food in front of her, bread and beans, but she only picked at it, her eyes distant. Finally, she looked at him, her voice breaking into the silence. "Why?" she asked, almost angrily. "Why do this for me? You don't know me. You don't know what I've done, what they've turned me into. I'm not worth saving." Jack knelt in front of her, his rough hands resting on his knees, his eyes locked on hers with a steadiness that felt unshakable. "Because no one deserves chains," he said softly. "Not you, not anyone. They broke their honor, not you. And don't ever think you're not worth saving. I've seen strength in you tonight that most men would never survive." Her lips trembled, her hands covering her face as sobs tore through her body. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to break, not because she was weak, but because she had finally found someone strong enough to hold the weight of her pain without adding to it. Jack didn't touch her. He didn't need to. He simply stayed, a silent presence in the storm of her grief. And when at last she lowered her hands and looked at him again, there was something different in her eyes. Not trust, not yet, but the faintest shimmer of possibility, of a life she had long stopped believing could exist. Outside, the sun broke fully over the horizon, spilling light across the land, chasing away the shadows. And in that moment, Jack knew this was only the beginning. He hadn't just bought her freedom. He had chosen to walk beside her on the road toward healing, no matter how long it took. My friends, if this story reached your heart, if it made you feel the weight of despair and the power of compassion, I ask you to subscribe to this channel. Because here, every story carries a truth that even in the darkest times, hope can rise again. And sometimes the strongest act a person can do is simply believe in someone who thought they were broken beyond repair. Subscribe now and never miss another story that reminds us of courage, redemption, and the unbreakable spirit within us all.